Good morning, everybody. We are live here from the birdhouse, and today we're talking about some of the different things you can put out in your yard to get the most diversity of birds in the winter. It has been quite the winter for most of us, and there are things you can do to kind of give the birds a leg up and to put out in your yard to attract a nice diversity. As always, we would love to know who is on. You can say hi in the comments, you can ask your questions, and definitely let us know what kind of things you are seeing in your yard. Would like to announce that just as of this morning, the tickets for our birding cruises are now live on our website. So you can go on to thebirdhouseny.com, go to our events section, and you can check out the different cruises we have to offer this year. So we are doing 5 cruises on the Genesee River on the Rivery boat, which is a smaller cruise. It holds about 35-ish people. That's how many tickets we sell. So that is a smaller cruise. It's an hour and 15 minutes long. And then we'll also be doing 1 cruise on the Colonial Belle, which is a much larger boat. We're not selling enough tickets to sell out the whole thing. We want it to be a nice kind of comfortable size for people, because we assume most people are going to be up on the top of the boat. And that is a 3-hour long cruise, not only a birding trip, but you also learn some of the history of the Erie Canal. You get to experience the low bridges and you have to duck down. So it's a lot of fun. So those have just gone live as of this morning on the Birdhouse website. So that's on thebirdhouseny.com. Go to our events section and you can get your tickets. So we're really excited about that. We're doing, we pushed some of the dates more towards the spring, which people asked for, but then we still have a couple later on in the season. We've got one in August and one in September on the river, which is really good birding. I think that September cruise is honestly probably the best birding out of all of them. So if you're interested in that, those tickets are live. So let's get started though, talking about different things that you can put in your yard to attract the birds in the winter time. So the first thing, that if you want to attract a wide diversity of birds, the best thing you can do is put out bird feeders, some kind of food. So not only will you get birds, but you'll get a diversity of species of birds coming to the food. And the food does make a difference. So you want to make sure that food is as fresh as it can be, and it's not full of some of these filler seeds that just take up space and take up room in the bag and take up weight in the bag. So on the left, I've got a picture of an example of a seed that has a lot of filler in it. It's got what's called milo in it, which are these kind of larger round brown seeds. The birds really don't eat that at all. That is just a waste grain. It gets thrown into bird seed blends just to make up some weight. The canary seed's kind of hit or miss. That's this long yellowish seed. So basically, if you've got a bird seed blend that has a lot of little yellow pieces in it, it tends to not be the best kind of seed for the birds. It tends to not be what they prefer. They love a lot of sunflower seeds. So black oil sunflower is key. They love peanuts. They love the safflower and the sunflower hearts. So on the right here, I've got a picture of our chickadee blend, which the birds absolutely love. There's something in there for any kind of bird that's going to come to the feeder. And so usually the bigger pieces are what really are going to attract the birds. Sometimes if you get into the really big pieces like the striped sunflower and the fruits, there's only a certain amount of birds that will eat those, but definitely want to make sure you've got something with a lot of black oil sunflower seed in it. And that will attract the biggest diversity of birds all year round, not just in the wintertime. Also, if you are looking to attract birds, but you don't want to go way out in your yard to refill those feeders, there's different things you can do. You can put up a window feeder. The downside of putting up a window feeder now is that the suction cups won't stick to glass as well as they will if you were to put it up in the spring or summer months. Your best bet for installing a window feeder, for attaching it, is putting it on the window when the weather is 50 degrees or so or warmer. So once it's up and it's secure, they really stick on the windows quite well. So, but you might have to wait until the spring to put one on your window. But once they're up, they'll stick on there well. They'll stick on all winter long. So these are great not only for you, but for pets. If you've got animals in the house, they love watching the birds come to the feeders. So that's an option also. And then there's the seed log feeders. We talk about them a lot. It's instead of having the loose seed that you pour into your feeders, these are logs of seed, and the birds will peck away at those little pieces. These last a long time. We have these in so many different types and flavors. We also have hot pepper versions of these, which are really popular because the birds love them, but the squirrels won't eat them. So the seed logs are great. They last a long time. You don't have to restock them as often as you have to refill your seed feeders. And then there's, of course, suet. You want to put suet out in the wintertime. I had a northern flicker on my suet feeder this morning when I was leaving, which was really exciting. That's this bird here on the left. But the woodpeckers absolutely love suet, and so do nuthatches, and you'll get other birds eating it too. It's a nice source of fat for these birds in the wintertime. Gives them the calories that they need to keep their body temperature up. And I highly suggest getting a paddle tail suet feeder, which is this style here in both of these photos. It's not just a suet feeder, but it has that little projection on the bottom that the woodpeckers will use to prop their tail up against to make it easier for them to feed, so they're not flopping all around on the suet feeder. It's especially important for the larger woodpeckers, like the northern flicker here or the pileated woodpecker, to have more perching room like that, so they're not just kind of flopping around on your feeder. You can also provide birds with water, even in the wintertime. And this winter, it has been very difficult for birds to find unfrozen, shallow sources of water for them to bathe or drink in. But you can provide them with that with a heated bird bath. You can get just the full heated bird bath, which has a heating elements all installed inside of it. They plug in, they operate on a thermostat, so they don't run all the time. They just run enough to keep the water unfrozen. So those are very popular, and they've been popular this year because the weather has been so cold. And don't be surprised if you have a heated bird bath, if along the rim, it kind of shows it in these pictures, there's some ice or there's some snow. That is totally common. You tend to get, especially with the weather we've been having, a little bit of a rim of ice or snow around the heated bird bath, but then the inside of the bath is unfrozen for the birds. And don't be worried about the birds getting too cold, but in the wintertime, they have something called a counter current exchange system that allows for their feet to stay warm, or for their body to stay warm, even if their feet are really cold. We get the question of, if a bird is perching on this feeder with metal perches, isn't it going to make their feet freeze? They have a very, very good countercurrent exchange heat system that allows for that hot blood from their body to go down to the feet, and at the same time coming back up, that the cold blood from their feet is being warmed from the other side, and it just allows that warm blood to constantly flow into the body of the bird while keeping the feet cool. So same with ducks, same with gulls that might be on the ice. Their feet stay cool, but their body stays warm. The blood coming from the artery will warm and then be cooled in the feet, but as it is cooling and going back up the vein, it does warm and goes back into the body. So not only can you provide birds with a heated bird bath, but if you have a bird bath that can be left outside in the wintertime, you can just put a heater inside of that too. So it operates just like a heated bird bath does. It has a thermostat in it, and so it doesn't run all the time, just enough to keep that water unfrozen. And the birds will drink the water in the winter. They'll bathe in it in the winter. So it is a nice source of water for them. And then there's shelter. So we talked about food, water, and shelter. And you can provide shelter for birds in the form of birdhouses, of course. You might see birds popping their little heads out of birdhouses that you have established already. And then there's always the roosting pockets, which are really popular. And roosting pockets are usually too small and too shallow for birds to nest in, but they're great places for the birds to stay out of the elements, to stay out of the cold and the snow and the rain. and the wind, all of that that we've been having. So they're just these little woven pockets. They're sometimes made of plant fibers. We have all kinds of different types, and the birds will go in there to stay out of the elements. Sometimes you'll get multiple birds in there at a time, multiple species at a time, and it's just a way for them to stay protected when the weather is so bad. There's also roosting houses, which operate a little bit differently from a birdhouse. The hole for the roosting house is on the bottom of the house, which allows for the warm air to stay at the top of the house. They have perches inside of them. And then just like the roosting pockets, you can get multiple birds inside these roosting houses at a time, multiple species at a time, sometimes, again, to stay out of the elements. Habitat's really important too. If you have trees and shrubs that the birds can hide in, that's always great. We hear stories of people taking their live Christmas trees and putting them outside for a while as a place for the birds to stay out of the elements. That is fantastic. If you have the space, planting for habitat is always fabulous, and I recommend going on. The Audubon Society has a fabulous native plant finder where you can put in your zip code and it will tell you the different plants that you can plant for birds in your area. It tells you what birds they attract, what types of plants they are. So if you're looking to do some habitat gardening, that is a fantastic resource. So plants that will provide not only food, but shelter for the birds. And then as far as some birds that you can expect to see in your yard, right now in the wintertime, goldfinches are loving the Niger seed. They love that finch favorite mix. We've been getting questions about a way to provide finches with food that doesn't leave a lot of shells or seeds on the ground. Because the Niger seed, believe it or not, even though it's really small, it does have a shell on it. So if you've got a lot of little small, what looks like Niger seed underneath your feeders, it could just be the shells from the birds eating it. That being said, our finch favorite mix is a blend of the Niger seed and ground up sunflower hearts, which the sunflower hearts don't have any shells on them. That's one option to kind of alleviate some of that mess. If you're feeding just straight up Niger seed, you might want to switch to our finch blend that has the sunflower hearts in it. Or you can put ground up what's called fine sunflower hearts or fine sunflower chips in your Niger feeder. It's fine enough that the birds can still pick it out of those little tiny holes and it won't leave any mess. There's no shells on it or anything. So that's an option for you if you've got some mess underneath your feeders, which in my yard is just getting covered by snow right now. So, but come at the end of the winter, there's going to be some cleanup involved. And then this is what those fine sunflower hearts look like. Although I think the stuff that we have is a little bit more fine because this is in a sunflower seed feeder. But this is a pine siskin. Pine siskins will also come to Niger feeders. They love sunflower seed and sunflower hearts. So this is another bird you might see at your Niger feeder or at your sunflower seed feeder. And then we talked on Saturday with Matt Young from the Finch Research Network, and we were kind of getting an update from this year's finch forecast about what actually developed. And there were some sightings of redpoll, and there are still some scattered sightings of redpoll around, which are an eruptive bird that comes down here in the wintertime. So if you happen to see one of these guys at your feeder, that would be now would be the time for you to see them. And they do love the Niger seed. It hasn't been a huge year for the redpolls, but there's been some scattered sightings. And we were talking earlier about suet. That's great for not only woodpeckers, but the nuthatches like the red-breasted nuthatch, which is more seasonally abundant in the wintertime. So keep an eye out at your feeders for these little guys. Not only do they eat suet, they like peanuts, and they'll eat the sunflower seed and sunflower hearts. Underneath your feeders, you're probably seeing the dark-eyed junco, which is a winter bird for us here. Really fun little bird that has a nice little high-pitched call, and they are here all winter long. And at your seed log feeders, you can expect things like, of course, the woodpeckers, but depending on what kind of seed log you put out, you can get cardinals coming to it, you can get finches. So depending on your flavor of seed log, you can get still a wide diversity of birds just with those alone. Suet is not only good for the woodpeckers, but the Carolina wrens. We've been getting lots of reports of Carolina wrens at feeders and then also singing their little hearts out. So they are prolific singers and they are practicing, it seems, for the spring months ahead, which is really exciting. So keep an eye out for Carolina wrens. I've been getting a little bit of Carolina wren activity myself this year, which is really fun. And you can also put out peanuts if you've got your backyard bird feeder set up going pretty strong, but you're looking for something else to add to it, and you don't have a peanut feeder, I would highly suggest a peanut feeder. You can get two different types. There is the peanuts in the shell feeder, like this one on the left. Great for woodpeckers, but also the blue jays absolutely love peanuts in the shell. Or you can get what's called a peanut pick-out feeder, which is on the right here. And this is a tube feeder that's mesh. You can see there's no perches on it. The woodpeckers and the titmice and the chickadees, they don't need the mesh, or they don't need the perches to sit on. They can just cling right onto that mesh and they'll pick out the little pieces of peanuts. So peanuts are awesome for the woodpeckers and other birds like chickadees and nuthatches, and titmice absolutely love them. Another woodpecker I should mention is the yellow-bellied sapsucker, which is a migratory woodpecker, but we do have them in the winter. I saw one about a month ago or so, which is really exciting. There have been some that have been seen here in the wintertime. Not really a bird that's going to come to your backyard feeders, but you might see them in the trees or in between the size of a downy woodpecker and a hairy woodpecker. And they do have that yellowish kind of wash to them. So keep an eye out for those too. And then, of course, the hawks. This is a picture of a hawk through my backyard door, and this was in my backyard. So Cooper's hawks are out there. Sharp-shinned hawks are definitely out there. They are looking for food as well, which comes in the form of small songbirds usually. This one definitely got something. There were some prints of feathers and whatever had happened there in the snow. So pretty sure that hawk got itself a meal. And so it's hard to see sometimes, but the hawks are a very good way to keep those songbird populations healthy. They will weed out the weak ones. And so having a hawk in your backyard isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. And then as we get on into the later on in the month, we might start to hear more reports and see more reports of some of the thrushes around. Some people are getting robins this winter. Some of them do stick around just like the bluebirds, but the bluebirds especially will start looking for nesting sites as the days get longer and the sun is out there. The sun is feeling brighter, it's feeling warmer, and these birds will start thinking about mating time. Right now, the bluebirds are really interested in bird baths, like the heated bird baths. If you have bluebirds around in the winter, we get reports all the time of them using these bird baths in the winter months. But some of the bluebirds go south for the winter. They go a little further south, just like the robins do, but some of them stick around. So it's not uncommon to see some bluebird activity in the wintertime. But over the next couple months, they'll start to pair up. They will start to look for nesting sites, and that's what we'll be talking about as we get later on into March, are some of these early nesting songbirds. And the bluebirds are an early nesting songbird. They are one of the earliest nesting birds that we have around here. And there's different houses that you can put out to attract those, which we'll talk about as we get on into the spring. But if you're looking to feed the bluebirds right now, we have different options. There are the bluebird nuggets. These are the little suet nuggets. They're mixed, they're little balls of suet mixed with things like mealworms. You can always put out freeze-dried mealworms. As it gets warmer, we'll have the live mealworms back in stock. And you don't need anything super fancy to provide bluebirds with food. Just a little dish like this that you can put the mealworms in, or the suet nuggets is perfect. You can get a little weather guard for the top if you want to, but it doesn't have to be anything elaborate to attract the bluebirds. We also have some feeders that have plexiglass on the sides of them or have little cages around them. The idea with those are to help keep out birds like starlings from the feeders, from the bluebird feeders. So We've got some that are right on the edge where the bluebirds can fit inside, but the starlings have a hard time. Things like this caged feeder and the bluebird feeder with the plexi on the sides. And this is the starling in question. European starlings, sometimes people want to keep them away or at bay because they can raid feeders. It's not uncommon to have not just one, but have a whole flock of feeders, like this picture taken by Gary of all these starlings just kind of hanging out. This is what my yard looks like a lot of the time. There are things you can do to keep starlings out of your feeders if you are trying to do that, because they do eat seed, they do eat suet. You can put out, if in your suet feeders, what's called all natural pure suet. So this is just the pure beef fat suet. Starlings tend not to like this so much. They like the suet that has seeds mixed in with it, or nut or peanut butter. So if you have just the pure beef fat suet, that can help keep your starlings at bay. You can also get what's called an upside down suet feeder. Starlings have a hard time clinging upside down to a feeder like this, but woodpeckers can do it just fine. Nuthatches can do it just fine. So this is another way to kind of help keep the starlings out. And then finally, there's safflower seed. And I always keep some safflower out in the yard because the starlings don't like it. The blackbirds don't like it. In the spring when I've got these big flocks of grackles and red-winged blackbirds. But the cardinals absolutely love it. The house finches that are here in the picture absolutely love it. So having a safflower source in your yard, I think is a great idea, because it's such a favorite of the cardinals, and the other birds don't eat it as fast. So you've always have something for those cardinals in your yard. So thank you guys for tuning in. It looks like there are some comments here for the day. And I mentioned that the cruises are now online. Our cruise tickets are now for sale online, but keep an eye out on our event calendar, because we will have more and more and more events that are being announced very, very soon. We've been contacting people and getting dates on the calendar. So we will have more events announced super, super soon. All of our plant sales, classes, all that good stuff. Let's see, we've got some comments here. Hi from your favorite Aunt Dar. That's my aunt online today. We've got Ivan on, who's saying hi and saying that this was cool, and they subscribed and liked, which we appreciate. Thank you so much. And Lisa is on and says, first year I've had a Carolina wren. Love their song. Yeah, they do have a really fun song. And if you have them hanging around all spring, you'll be hearing that song quite a bit. So it looks like that is everybody's comments and questions for the day. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I mentioned, keep an eye out on our event calendar, and we will have more live streams coming to you soon with some more guests, which is really exciting. We'll be announcing those too. So until Saturday, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Enjoy your birds. Bye-bye.